And we're live.
We're here.
Welcome.
Hi, all. Welcome. It is Thursday night, generational. It is Thursday, right?
It is Thursday.
Thursday night, generational change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're not in the same location again, only I'm actually somewhere else, like literally somewhere else. I'm in between Florida and California. Where am I?
Well, I know where you are.
I'm in Austin, Texas. And
Austin used to be cool.
it's still got it. Well, what isn't cool about it anymore, Jen?
I think it just inevitably happens to places. I don't know. I mean, in Boulder, we used to blame it on the Californians. You know, like you have some place that's really nice and cool, and then all the Californians move there, and it kind of sucks. I do know that Texans generally don't necessarily care for those people, but I don't know. Why did it get so uncool?
Well, it's definitely gentrified, overly expensive. It's still got.
How does that happen?
Corrupt politicians, maybe. That's part of it.
It's very possible.
It's got a fun, 6th Street, as you know. Well, speaking of which, our esteemed guest, who we are going to bring in character, and then we will disclose afterwards who that person is. It goes without saying that Austin definitely has a great comedy scene. So anybody who likes a good comedy show, this is definitely one of the top cities for that. Goes without saying, this is Joe Rogan's city now, and so he brings in a lot of great stand-up comics and the Factory and all those different places. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the opportunity to stop there. I had to cut my night short because we have a very important guest this evening, Jen. It took a lot to get her to come on our show.
I know.
But I think it goes without saying.
And this is big for a little channel.
It is big for a little channel. It is big for a little channel, especially since she graced the screen of CNN last night. And, we felt that it was necessary to do a follow-up because she's getting a lot of bad press as a result.
Or maybe it's because she just can't seem to answer a question. I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll get her to answer one tonight, and maybe it'll be coherent, which would be nice. So she is the former state attorney or the district attorney.
Well, she was state attorney and attorney general.
District attorney of San Francisco, attorney general of California, U.S. senator from California, the current vice president, and dare I say, maybe the next president in a week and a half. We'll see. Either way, it's going to be a wild ride. Madam VP Kamala Harris, welcome to Generational Change.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited. I love interviews. In fact, every time somebody asks me to interview, I'm right there because to me it's important to interview. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's important. There's so much word salad to put out there in the world. And
I know, whatever you guys say. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but yeah, I love to be here. I love my country, and I know you guys do too.
We love our country enough to put ourselves through this massacre of, having to try to figure out exactly where you stand on any particular issue. I think the best way to do this and for people to fully understand where you're coming from is it's very difficult when you're being interviewed. Then it's another thing to actually see how you responded during an interview and then responding to that. And so while not everybody maybe necessarily agrees with the answers you gave last night, I think it'd be very important to start with showing you exactly what you said regarding what has been a significant issue for so many people who have hated your opponent, Donald Trump, for the past 8 years. If I may channel Mr. Trump, we're going to build a big, beautiful wall on the southern border. And he got a lot of crap for that. A lot of people.
We should have set this up as a debate. We should have set this up as a debate. With
I don't have a mask, so I can't do it. It's okay. This is an interview.
She doesn't, but it's really good. All right. Anyway.
Well, here's what you had to say last night to CNN's Anderson Cooper.
Let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came for time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're
Yeah, I think you were looking for that laugh line, and it didn't quite come from the audience. What were you hoping for there? What was the emphasis on that statement about Trump getting Mexico to pay for it, and it didn't exactly happen? But it sounds like you're supporting the wall now.
I'd support the wall. You know, I think it's important that we can't let everybody in. You know, that's not right. We need to have some sort of wall, I think, and I think that I would like to build that wall when I become president. I think that's what we should do, because too many people are coming over. We can't support everybody, you know?
I mean, are you worried they'll eat the pets? Are you worried about them eating the pets?
Eating the dogs and the cats. No, not really. That's Trump's thing. But, you know, I mean, there's welfare in California. All the blue states, we take care of these people, you know, and we can't afford to do that. So
Well,
they need
let
to
me
become
ask you.
citizens. They need to become citizens.
Well, let me ask you, because one of the ways you seem to have dealt with them in the past, or with everybody in general, is you just incarcerate. You just incarcerate people and just make small crimes out of everything, and then just keep them incarcerated for slave labor. So, I mean, that might be one way to deal with it.
No, I can't. I couldn't do that. No, you know what? These illegal aliens that come over the border, you know, I think they love America, just like I do, and just like you do. I mean, we all love America, and you can't blame them for wanting to walk over the border. You can't blame them. They want to be Americans too. They sure do.
What was the importance of emphasizing that illegal aliens are able to get transitional medication when they're incarcerated? I mean, tell me somebody put you up to that at least. This is not something that you just thought of on the fly. Some consultant gave you this advice and said, yeah, this will land really well with the voters of America.
Well, you know, I think they have their rights too, because they can't help how they were born. Okay, if they want to get transition surgery, they should be able to get surgery, you know, and not suffer, because that turns into mental illness, and we have a mental illness problem in our society. So
You see how much better the vice president is capable of answering questions when she's not in front of the bright lights?
I suppose. So then do you support like universal health care, single payer health care?
I would like to see that happen. I would. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I would like that. In fact, once I become president, I'm going to put that through. I think we're all going to have free medical, which we deserve as Americans.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Well, Madam Vice President, I have not cast my vote yet, and you're very slowly but surely winning me over here. I wonder what's happening.
Oh, wow. I
But
don't know.
we're just getting started, because you've got a lot more to answer for. And so I think it's
Okay.
important that you explain this next statement regarding the man who wants to be president again, about his cravenness towards fascism. So let's see what you had to say here.
to General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, servicemen and women, referring to them as suckers and losers, how he demeans people who have taken an oath to sacrifice their life for our country. And I do believe, Anderson, that part of this is why, even just this week, I traveled this state and others with Liz Cheney, former Congress member who was a very high-ranking Republican. She has endorsed me. Her father, the former Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, is voting for me.
Is she not a fascist? I would think Cheneys are pretty up there with on the fascist food chain.
Madam Vice President, I do have to say, maybe Trump is a fascist. Maybe he's not.
Maybe
But
you can
isn't it-
explain that. We should have her explain what defines
yeah.
fascism.
I'll explain. First of all, I just want to let you guys know. When I was growing up, my mom supported me and my sister. She worked 2 jobs to support us and make sure we had food on the table.
I think I've heard this
Okay.
before, but keep going.
Yeah, well, it's true. And she loved America, and so does me and my sister. So I'm here to try my best to be the first woman president of the United States.
Hmm.
And yeah, that I love America that much. I do. Yeah,
Well-
Donald is a fascist, and I am not a fascist. I
What
Yeah,
is a
guarantee that.
fascist? But like, what does that mean? Like, I really would love people.
No, let's not back the
Well-
vice president into a corner. Let's be fair. Fascism is the merging of the corporate state with government, and it does seem, I could be wrong here, but former vice president and should be in The Hague, Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, and he was ensuring Halliburton got major contracts during the war in Iraq. Now, I don't know about you, but isn't that kind of fascism? Wouldn't you say that the former vice president is kind of a fascist himself? Just asking.
I don't think so. Fascism to me is very, very right-wing policies and someone who's a dictator. And that's Donald Trump. He is a dictator. Not me, not Kamala Harris. No. Nobody on the Democratic side is that. No George Soros, nobody. It's Donald Trump.
just, yeah.
So is it
No.
fair to say that as soon as you declare that you're a Democrat, that automatically makes you not a fascist? Is that kind of what you're
Well,
saying?
I'm not a fascist. I can't really speak about the other Democrats because I am a different person. I'm Kamala Harris and I'm VP of the United States. And yeah,
Sure are.
yeah, I am. And I'm looking forward to winning this election. And I hope you guys do vote for me.
Well, you're going to have to hope a little harder. But we'll
Yeah.
finish this out and see what else you have to say.
Over
Okay.
400 previous members of the administration, from Ronald Reagan to both Presidents Bush to Donald Trump even, have endorsed my candidacy. And the reason why among them is a legitimate fear based on Donald Trump's words and actions that he will not obey an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He himself has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States and wants to earn your vote to stand again behind the seal of the President of the United States? No one standing behind the seal of the President of the United States of America should be in that position saying they want to terminate the Constitution of the United States.
Madam Vice President, Donald Trump is a lot of things,
Mm.
but I have never once heard him say, we totally have to eradicate the Constitution. So could you kind of be a little bit more definitive about why you would say that he said such a thing when I don't see it on record? Jen, have you seen that on record?
No, I have not.
Well,
And we
he
are not
wants-
Trump supporters, mind you. So
I'm also curious how he would do it. You know, I'm very curious how he would do that.
He wants to take away a woman's right to choose. And that is huge. A woman has her right to choose what she does with her body. Okay. Not a state, not the government. Just each woman has her own right. She shouldn't have to listen to somebody. If she wants an abortion, she shouldn't have to go to another state just to get an abortion. She should be able to have one in her doctor's office. And that's the thing we're trying to protect here. Women's rights, rights to choose, transgender rights, to change their bodies if they don't like what they were born with. They want to add a penis on themselves, they can, or take away a penis. I don't know. I just think whatever they want. They should be able to have it. That's my opinion.
We started off so promisingly, but hey, just fight your way through it, I guess. We do want to know, though, which I think is important here, and considering that early voting has already begun, not mail-in voting, but actually going to the polls and casting your vote. And yet, for many swing state voters, they still say the biggest issue with you is they do not know what you stand for. They do not know how you are different from the current sitting president. So this is what you had to say last night regarding this particular question.
You've been in the position of vice president for the past 4 years under the Biden administration. How can we expect you to deviate from the direction of that administration compared to your own? How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
That's a great question, and thank you. Well, first of all, my administration will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring to this role my own ideas and my own experience. I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues and believe that we have to actually take new approaches. For example, what we talked about in terms of housing. My experience that leads to that priority includes what I did to take on the big banks around the foreclosure crisis when I brought billions of dollars to homeowners that were the subject of predatory lending. I know what homeownership means to the.
I'm going to have to do a little bit of a gotcha, Madam Vice President. It's necessary. This is an important question because you want the American people to know exactly where you stand. Well, as you know, you were the Attorney General in California for a number of years, yes. Especially during a very difficult time for most Californians during the Great Recession. Many, many people lost their homes. And I do think that the actions of, I believe it was one national bank, I don't want to butcher the name of Steve Mnuchin's bank too badly, but it does seem that there was overwhelming evidence that he was kicking people out of their homes. And your office highly encouraged you to prosecute Mr. Mnuchin for financial crimes related to the housing crisis. And yet, you didn't prosecute him, and then he gives you a substantial contribution to your U.S. Senate campaign in 2016. That does seem like a conflict of interest as it relates to what you just said last night. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, this is the thing. Okay. Like I said, I've lived in California a long time. Okay. And, you know, first of all, I'm going to go say that I used to go to church with my mom and my sister, and we prayed every day, sometimes twice a day. And I love going to church. Yeah, that's important for me. As an American, I think it's important that you have a faith that we need this in our lives. And I do believe that faith should be intertwined with our government in a certain way. And I mean, don't you agree?
No, actually, we actually do support One West Bank. Thank you, Chino Latino, Chino, California. So there you go, a fellow Californian attesting to the name of the bank that Mr. Mnuchin, as I was emphasizing, was taking people out of their homes. Now, I have no problem, as Jen, I think you would agree, if people choose to pray. We know people that pray 5 times a day. What I have a problem with are those that say that they do not believe in the separation of church and state. And that does sound like what you're saying. And since you think that the former president is going to eradicate the Constitution, I would think eradicating the First Amendment is the equivalent of eradicating the Constitution. And that's my opinion. So correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong here in interpreting what you're saying. A lot of people tend to have a problem with being able to interpret what you're saying. So here's an opportunity to self-correct if necessary.
Well, first of all, the First Amendment cannot be eradicated. And the fascist Trump is trying to change that, in my opinion. So I would not change that. That I would not change. It's a freedom of speech. And that's what everybody deserves, is a freedom. You know, that is just the way it's been in the United States for decades. And that's how I feel as VP. And when I become president, there's going to be differences between me and Biden. And those are currently in writing. Those are things are going to happen. Like,
I'm going to spare our audience from having to, I kind of understand what you're trying to say, but I'm not even sure you understand what you're saying. So let's listen to more of what you had to say last night, and that way you can respond.
The American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking.
I just have to say, I know you tried really hard to shed a tear there, and I know it didn't happen, but listen, A for effort. You know, it doesn't work for everybody. Some can cry on cue, some can't. It is what it is.
Care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation, which is what we call those folks who are literally in the middle, who are raising their young children and taking care of their parents, which is why my plan and approach says, hey, you shouldn't have to wipe out all your savings to qualify for Medicaid to be able to get support to hire somebody to help you cook for your parent or help them put on a sweater. I've done that. I know what that requires.
Okay, so you said like 5 or 6 different things there, but I'm going to pick one of them out for you to explain, because I don't think, Jen, even you would understand what the sandwich generation is. That's a new one. So if you can help us better understand what that means, because I've never heard that before.
I'm in the sandwich generation, Peter. People with children and parents. That's exactly what she's talking about.
That is true. That is very true. It's a sandwich generation. And I've raised children, even though I didn't give birth. I did raise children. I did. And I miss my mother very much. I do. I didn't shed a tear, but I miss her. I do.
Well, we'll finish this one out.
You shouldn't have to quit your job in order to do the work that is necessary to take care of your children and your parent, because it's overwhelming to try to do it all. And so my plan is to have and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home health care for our seniors. These are a couple of examples, including what we talked about in terms of price gouging and what we need to do in addition. And it's a new approach that I think is well overdue. Let's invest in the small businesses of America.
Madam Vice President, you did say at the top of the show that you do support a single-payer universal healthcare system. Now, are you going to stick with that, or are you going to emphasize this Medicaid expansion? Where do you stand if you have to put your foot down on a specific?
Well, I think we can expand the Medicaid and the Medicare, as well as having a universal health. Okay. In my website, you guys can go to that and look and see all the stipulations that I have that's going to go into effect. And if you want to know better, then go to my website. You can do that. It'll help you, because we just don't have enough time in here to go over everything.
Well, I was wondering when that laugh was coming, but I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I don't know how much you're going to enjoy this last subject, because unfortunately, Madam Vice President, and this has become a very big problem. Now, I certainly understand the dynamics of winning an election. I have obviously supported Jen on 2 occasions trying to win a congressional seat. You have to go get the votes where you think you can get them. Now, obviously, one of the reasons I am sure that you have wrapped yourself literally in a tight bow with Liz Cheney is because you have lost a significant portion of the progressive base in the Democratic Party, although I'm not sure how many of them actually still want to be in the Democratic Party anymore. I digress. Because of your position on Israel-Palestine, this is a very serious problem, and your answer last night is basically trying to be a fence sitter. But we'll see what you had to say, and then we'll comment.
What do you say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third-party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and have talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries. They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United States who admires dictators and is a fascist. They also care about the fact that we need practical, common sense solutions from a leader who is willing to work across the aisle on behalf of the American people and not themselves. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body, understanding that we're not trying to change anyone's belief, but let's not have the government telling women what to do with their body.
Jen, you want to take this one?
This is why I don't do comedy, because it's just none of this is that funny. But yeah. So what if the only way to stop it is to stop giving arms and support to Israel? What if the only way to stop this is an arms embargo to Israel? So your choices are killing Palestinians or arms embargo to Israel. That's the choice. So where are you on that?
Well, you know, right now we're working on bringing these hostages home. Okay, because far too many Palestinians have been killed, and that's just not acceptable. Okay, now where I stand on that, we need to bring these hostages home. We really do, because these hostages are mothers, their grandmothers, and their children. I have children. I had a mother I love very much, and I would hate to see any more Palestinians killed. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's not exactly going to solve the problem. There's also about 10,000 Palestinian hostages, but we tend to forget that actually exists. We will finish this out.
Question is, as president, what would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies due to bombs being funded by U.S. tax dollars?
So I will say, and I think this is to your point, far too many innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed. It's unconscionable. And we are now at a place where, with Sinwar's death, I do believe we have an opportunity to end this war, bring the hostages home, bring relief to the Palestinian people, and work toward a two-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians in equal measure have security, where the Palestinian people have dignity, self-determination, and the safety that they so rightly deserve.
Jen,
Yeah.
could you please guide Madam Vice President?
Yeah, I think what we're wanting to know is what strategically would you do? I mean, I know what we want. You want the hostages to come home. I get that. But the fact is we've been doing the same thing for over a year and it hasn't worked. So we need to do something different. So what would that look like?
Well, first of all, I was the border czar, okay, as you probably know. So I think I'm going to go over there to Israel. I'm going to go over there and visit, and I'm going to see what's going on over there so I can get a better idea. So I could try to get all this stopped. We can't go on like this. We can't be giving bombs to Israel. We can't be bombing Palestine. We just can't do that. That's how I feel.
It almost sounds like thoughts and prayers.
It's very thoughty and prairie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I plan to go. I'll be the czar for Israel and Palestine. That's my job.
We're definitely going to need a hell of a lot of thoughts and prayers to get through the next 4 years. That much I can say with all due respect. Thank you, Madam Vice President.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for not answering any questions. You've made quite a habit out of that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
with that said, please introduce yourself. Let the audience know who you are. And this has been a lot of fun. We
I
really
can't even, I feel infuriated. Like you're really good because I'm sitting here feeling infuriated and I can't even, like, I don't even know. I just can't. But anyway.
Listen,
yes.
she is excuse me, you're a really terrible person. You come on this show. I am a really great guest. I have done some really great work with these people. And you come on here and you call me a fascist. I am a stable genius, a businessman, smart guy, and you are totally in over your head. You cannot run this country. It's going to
It's
be
the
my
hands,
job.
right? It's the
Oh,
hands.
I love it. The voice and everything. You sound just like him. I love
Yeah,
it.
he's good.
Make America great again.
Again.
In
MAGA.
And by the way, and this is no joke, because we're about 45 minutes from Mar-a-Lago. So I would say probably like it was about two and a half years ago, Jen, I started, saying make America great again. And then the next thing you know, somebody like dropped a flyer from an event at Mar-a-Lago that said MAGA with the second A that actually said make America great again. And I just said to her, somebody heard this on our podcast and was like, they brought it to Donald's attention. Like, that sounds really great. Totally good.
Tell us who you are, because we've not met.
Oh, yes. Just by email. My name is Cammie Burnett, and I'm an actress and comedian in Los Angeles. I go back and forth between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. But
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
And you
I
do that
enjoy it.
really well. Like,
Oh,
I
thank
mean,
you.
yeah, that was, so obviously you must find her incredibly frustrating and infuriating.
Yeah, it's a little comical. So that's why it's fun to imitate her.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yet we could be stuck with that. I don't think we
Yeah.
will, but we could be theoretically.
I know, but then I'd have somebody to imitate. Other, I have to find somebody else to imitate after that.
Right.
And
Well, I
that's one
heard
of the
you do Pelosi. He said you
I
do Pelosi.
I do.
That's
Yeah.
because Peter really, and I tell him he'll try sometimes to do women. He has a few, like he does Clinton and Bernie. He's got really good stuff. But whenever he tries to do women, it's just not. It's not good.
It's hard. It's difficult.
Cammie, do me a favor. Put those glasses on again. I tend to like the ladies with the glasses.
Oh,
You got a
I can
Janine
see
Melnitz-
now.
You got a Janine Melnitz thing going on from Ghostbusters. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah,
So I get
that's
the mask and,
good
you
job.
get into it and all that. But, the thing that we would both agree, I think everybody would agree, one of the real detriments over the past several years is the fact that comedy was not permitted. It was like you would do stand-up and you could not, under any circumstances, go after Biden. You couldn't go after Kamala. Everything had to be about Trump. And if anybody even had any slight indication that they had a difference of opinion, it's like, oh, you're excommunicated. You can't do that now. And you saw it at all these comedy stores, whether it was in LA or a lot of other places.
Right.
What was that like?
I wasn't doing stand-up at that time. So I started doing stand-up, well, a few years ago, but last year I did a few and then I kind of stopped. Been focusing on my videos right now, but I am going to get back into the circuit. And I have listened to some stand-up comedians. Sometimes they do go there, on the right, mostly on the left. They're always saying things about Republicans or whatever, and it's always funny. But I think you have to be very careful if you're conservative as a comedian, letting everybody know that you are. That's a little bit. But
because the left doesn't have the same sense of humor. I actually
you're right.
found that interesting at that dinner, the Catholic dinner.
Oh,
and and even though everyone's like Trump's so thin-skinned, and he's like a giant man baby, he's ridiculous.
Yes.
But he's definitely capable of laughing at himself. And when people make fun of him, there's never anything. But if people were to approach him or approach Kamala like they've approached him, it would not go over. It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you should have, they should have invited you to appear at the Catholic dinner in New York.
So funny.
That would have been funny.
So funny.
And you could have just answered the questions exactly as she would have
just
answered
like
them.
I did. Exactly.
You really have it down. Like you really sound like her.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. How long have you been working on that? Like, how long have you been working
Kamala,
on her?
very short. I'd say probably about 3-4 months with her.
Yeah, that's great.
And then Pelosi, it was my mom's idea. This was like, I didn't even know who she was till about 6 years ago. My mom said, why don't you do Pelosi, impersonate Pelosi? And I said, hey, I'll try that. So I did that, and I got a lot of attention and a lot of laughter with that. And I thought, hey, I can do this. So I started doing
Yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah,
it's
and so-
good.
and I got hired recently. I don't know if you saw my social media. With her Autopilot is a financial company, and I got hired as a Nancy Pelosi impersonator. And so I spent 2 days in Las Vegas following around some people, and I was gambling and all this good stuff. And yeah, they were trying to promote. I was at the UFC game as well. I sat in the front. Yeah,
That's
with Sean
fun.
O'Malley. Yeah, it was so much fun. I had a great time. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm hoping there's more work like this out there for me, because I love that.
Well-
I can't believe I was getting paid to do something I love.
Well,
You
here's
know?
the thing. There's no shortage of political tools to mock.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
you're right.
And there never will be. There
Yeah.
never will be a shortage of that.
Yes, yes.
These people you couldn't write it as
Right.
ridiculous as it actually is.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, you've done a really great job, guys. Cammie's information is in the description. Please make sure that you're following her on social media.
Definitely.
Especially when you're an up-and-coming comedian. They need all the support that they can get. So please make sure that you are liking and commenting on her videos. If you like her Kamala impression, you'll like her Pelosi impression even more. We will definitely have you back. And yeah, let's have we'll have a debate at some point. That'll be fun.
Well,
Yeah,
that
that'd
would
be
be
great.
hilarious. That would be
Yeah.
hilarious. But
I'd love that. You guys
Yeah.
are doing a great job here.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate it.
very
Nice to
welcome.
meet you.
Appreciate
Nice to
you
meet
coming
you
on,
guys.
Cammie.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Great evening. So, like I
No,
said,
she
you have to
sounds
kind of
just like her.
yeah.
She
you
sounds
have
just
to-
well. It's like
yeah.
with you when you do Trump. Like if I close my eyes, it's very believable.
Well, you got to laugh your way through this bullshit. I mean, that's just kind of what you have to do.
I still found it infuriating. Like
Well,
I
yeah,
was just, I find it so infuriating, and I don't understand how these quote unquote, I don't call them journalists. They're not the talking heads, moderators, whatever. What is the point? What is the point of asking her anything? I really don't know what the point is. Nobody
Well,
gets
even
an
in that
answer.
answer,
It's
even
so
when
absurd.
she gives this answer related to Gaza, and she jumps into like 5 or 6 other things.
Well, because she doesn't have an answer. That's the whole point.
But
If
how
she
is it
had
that
an
she
answer,
has-
she has no answer.
But you saw how bad she was back in 20, and you would think that she would have been coached to some degree in terms of what needs to be done. And somebody's been pointing this out, and I think it's the best description. She's that student who tries to bullshit their way through a book report, didn't actually do the work, didn't actually study. and then
You know what?
pretend to know what they did.
I resent that as someone who very well did that for a long time. So, you know what? It's sort of like I actually would get A's on shit I never read. So, you know what? Don't insult.
I
Don't
actually,
use that
I
as
remember this
insult
one
to-
guy in school. He never studied for anything. He would look at the stuff one time and he would be set and he would do well on the exam. I don't understand that. I had
Well, it's
really
it's you know what? It just is what it is. Some of us have certain skills, but that's not. She just can't answer a question. And I could tell that woman who had asked her in that town hall, the woman who had asked her, "What will you do to stop more Palestinians from that?" Like I was watching that woman's face when Kamala was answering, and I could tell that she was kind of as annoyed as I felt.
Yeah, 'cause
Like
it's-
her face was very telling, and it's almost like she
the
knew
truth
she
is that
wasn't
some
going to get an
people are
answer.
just going to justify it on along the lines of, well, this is not going to change, so I'm going to go with this, this, and this. But
Yeah,
it-
that's
it
a good
becomes-
question, Piece of. This is a very this and how she was ever able. Well, first of all, I don't think the California bar is I don't know. I took Texas, which is like the hardest. It's 3 days. So I don't know what
That
California
sounds
is.
pretty hard.
What, Texas?
Yeah.
Texas was harder than Florida. Florida I did, but it wasn't as hard as Texas. I don't
This
know. I
depends on
wonder
where
that.
you want to practice.
And I was somebody that when I prepped for the bar, first of all, when I took the bar, I want to say the magic number was 871 was the number needed to pass. And I wrote 871 on a big dry erase board. And in my mind, anything over 871 was a minute lost of my life that I would never get back. So I was really just aiming for 871. But I don't know how she did. Like, I don't know how she was able to litigate a case. my understanding is that everything would get like handed over, pled out, passed on, and she never really did. Which makes sense. There's a lot of people in politics. Marco Rubio is another one. Worked at a law firm, never litigated a case, basically just like got walked through. And I don't understand. It's an embarrassment for litigators.
I'll tell you what is also an embarrassment. As you know, we go back and forth with wanting Jon Stewart to be the person we know he is deep down, but obviously he has to walk that line.
He still works for who he works for.
He does. If you work for Viacom, they are going to give you the business. And guys, remember, the links are in the description.
What I've been saying about Jon Stewart is I actually think that he's solid. I really do like Jon Stewart.
I do too. I always have.
But
I wish he would talk some sense into. Listen, he's very chummy with Bruce. I really wish he would talk some sense into him. That would be
probably
nice.
Thinks Bruce has crossed over. But you know, the problem I have isn't him as much as he just all the neoliberal guests he has on, and he doesn't really push them. And I didn't watch this because I find Tim Walz kind of annoying. So I didn't watch this.
You know, the thing about Walz and the problem with him is that much like Kamala, it's like a perfect ticket. He's in over his head. Like he is not.
At least he's held an executive position.
Sure, I understand that, but I'm saying that
did you hear what Tim said? Tim Black was saying about him. Like he finds him really creepy. I didn't find it, and like how he acts is really strange. I just find him like almost like Elmer Fudd like almost not like real. And I don't know. He seems like the coach, and that's cool. That's cool.
I think what's happened is that this is a campaign where neither candidate is allowed to speak freely. So they have to basically just do what they're told. And if it looks like they're complete fools in the process of doing so, it really makes it look bad. And this is another example of what we are in store for. Because if they win, there's this idea in people's minds that if Harris Walz wins, that somehow things are automatically going to change. They're going to open up. No, this is going to get so much worse if they end up winning.
Again, guys, we're going to hell. I want everybody to be very clear. I love to sort of like bring in that Jennifer Lawrence character from Don't Look Up. We're going to hell, people.
And listen, we're not going to be able to talk. Yeah, we're not going to be able to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about it on Monday with our good friend. We're having a crossover podcast Monday night with Jamal Thomas. So that will be a fun conversation.
Yeah, no surprise, guys. But we are now, of course, having issues with Sputnik because, you know, everything Russia.
Okay.
So Jamal is back doing his own independent thing. And yeah, he's great. I love talking to him.
He is great. And he's going to come on here and we are going to talk about the fact that it now appears, Jen, that we, the United States Air Force, have actually been dropping bombs on Gaza. That's a little tidbit that we're going to get into. It's a little early, but some stuff came out earlier today, and I'm sure it's probably true. So,
you know what? Let them, as long as somebody, I know there's people keeping track, because when the reconciling comes for this, and there will be a reckoning for this, people, make no mistake. I really do. I'm glad that we have all the video proof that we have for all the right people to be criminally prosecuted. That's what I mean, honestly. And this is definitely, and if they think that by that getting out that they're going to be able to increase their enlistment numbers, they're nuts.
The person who's trying to be the next vice president, the governor of Minnesota, listen, I think he's great. He's done a really good job in my state. It's unfortunate that he's not. I should have been the vice president. Jesse.
Yeah, but Jesse wouldn't deal with the Democratic Party.
That's true. So it is what it is. But good old Jon Stewart was not going to let Mr. Walz get away with thinking that accepting the support of good old war criminal Dick Cheney is acceptable political gamesmanship.
I was curious how Jon Stewart would approach that, because he definitely had a lot to say about Dick Cheney for years.
He sure did, and he didn't forget.
You met people that appear to be somebody, because what I know of people who say, oh, I'm undecided, you talk to them for 30 seconds and you're like, oh, you're a libertarian. Yeah. Like it's they have what their deal is already set up. Yeah. They just sort of place themselves in this I don't know yet. Have you felt what's been an effective argument that you felt has pulled people closer to you?
Well, it's a lot of the folks I'm talking to on that. They're folks that are they are Republicans, and they say it. A Republican introduces me in Omaha. He said, I can't stand with this guy anymore. That's not the party of Reagan. This isn't freedom, whatever it may be. It's a lot of those folks that are trying to find permission to get off the mega stuff and move over. So there's.
But he's saying the party of Reagan.
But Kamala, by the way, people, just so people understand, Kamala, and actually it's not even just her, the whole party, like they are all to the right of Reagan. There was recently, I just saw a clip of Reagan. It was actually at the debate between him, George H.W., and I forget who was the third person in there. Who was the third? There was three of them. This was a long time ago. And it was Ronald Reagan talking about the importance of helping immigrants. Like it was so... And people, all these Republicans that revere Reagan, but yet you are so far to the right. Like the stuff that they're doing regarding immigration was not at all what Reagan was about.
No, we'll continue.
Still listening. They're finding a way.
How do you convince them that the things that will be done in your administration will impact their lives in a tangible way?
Yeah, they need to feel it. I oftentimes talk about this as a teacher. You know, the Maslow's hierarchy is self-actualization. You got to have a lot of time on your hands, money to self-actualize. They're worried about, and when they say that they're worried about the economy, believe them, they are worried about the economy or they're struggling. You can't tell them, well, inflation's down, interest rates are coming down. They need to see the tangible things that will make a difference. So talk to them what a $6,000 tax credit looks like as opposed to a Trump tariff that would add 20%. These are folks that want to find a reason to not vote for Donald Trump. We need to give them that.
If I were to look at this as an alien stepping into this election, just from the commercials, I would think that Republicans vote on two things: stopping people from coming over the border and stopping trans people from playing sports. Like, those are the only two commercials that I've seen.
Yeah.
And the Democrats, oddly enough, run on two things as well: stopping people coming in from the border. They've accepted it. Like, all the Democrats that are running for Congress and for other offices here in New York all talk about the border and then choice legislation.
Yeah.
And you would think those are the only two things that are going on that anybody is talking about. So it's interesting to hear that one-to-one, it's more.
Jen, please educate the people of what happened in South Florida when you were considering running and you spoke with one of the leaders of Broward County Democratic Party politics.
Oh, you mean about what I'm sorry.
Matters?
You mean what the solution was?
Yeah, how are we gonna make the Democratic Party better? What do we have to do? And what did she say?
I'm not sure who you're referring to. I'm not sure you're referring to her because, like, I'm not sure. I'm really
guns and abortion.
Oh, well, that's all they have is guns and abortion. What do you
That's
mean?
all we're focused on. Oh, voter registration and the Second Amendment.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, that's okay. So, yeah, a couple years back, I was talking to the local chair of our Broward Democratic Party, and this was actually after a midterm where things were bad. And I went up to her and I'm like, okay, so now what's the plan to, like, really bring voters and, like, really try to get people? And she looked at me and she went, all we're doing is banning assault weapons and registering voters. And that's it. And she actually did that with her hands in front of me. That's it. And as if any other policy ideas were just unnecessary. We're just going to stick with banning assault weapons. That was their big policy here in Florida.
And this is why Stewart is basically saying, yeah, this bullshit's not selling. It's not working, not working.
Economy.
Well, they ask people to rank the issues where they're at, depending on where you rank it. And look, these guys figured out early, fear is a great short-term motivator. I often say I supervise the high school lunchroom. I know fear works. It doesn't, but it doesn't change behaviors. And I still believe that there's this aspirational piece and really listening to where people are at. In small towns, these are not hateful people, but they're wondering, where did their manufacturing jobs go? Well, Donald Trump shipped them overseas, tariffs and things like that.
Well, all right. Okay. You know something?
Okay. How did he say that with a straight face? This has been the third way DLC neoliberal Democratic Party takeover wet dream forever. Who started this? I started this. It was Bill. Well, look, the truth is a lot of that started even before, but yeah, this has been nothing to do with, Trump certainly wasn't going to help the situation, but at least he stopped the TPP.
I totally stopped it. It was the best thing. And here's the thing. You and I both know that if Hillary Clinton got in, she would have passed the Trans-Pacific Partnership just to one-up her husband.
I believe that if Kamala got in, that Hillary will still seek to do all those same things. So that's what I think.
I know that the emphasis is on him basically trying to defend the endorsement of having Dick Cheney, but this statement is insane. It is insanity.
So interestingly, so Denise says from here, let's put this up because it's interesting. Yeah. From 2005 to 2008, I helped Deloitte move several Chevron sites to South America. Which POTUS was that? Interestingly, you got 2.
Well, listen,
you got 2 POTI.
It was, I don't really remember being president at the time, but I'm sure if I did it, it was a good thing.
But just like in the same way that Joe didn't stop the wall or, undo some of the things that we don't like, the tax cuts, the stuff from Trump, Obama kept all the same stuff that W was doing with that. So again, this has nothing to do with party.
Oh, he seems so in his element right now, I tell you.
And I actually do believe that this guy, first of all, Minnesotans, he probably is just like Joe working guy and probably does care about those people.
Sure.
But once you sign on to be with this program, you have to discard that. So it kind of doesn't matter. Also, it doesn't really matter because vice president's kind of irrelevant. So
it kind of is, but it depends on which one. I wouldn't say that Dick Cheney was an irrelevant vice president.
Well, no, but that's unusual. That's not normal. Well, and the second term of Reagan, but we were better off that way. Anyway,
former President George Bush.
Well,
make sure we're making the case that look, here's how this is going to specifically impact you.
Right.
We hear you about this.
I can't think of a vice president in recent memory that used a shotgun irresponsibly. Nothing comes to mind.
That's right.
How is that? The Cheney thing. Do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
The shooting? No. Having the Cheneys on board?
Yeah. You can't Dick Cheney or Taylor Swift. No.
We're a big tent. We're a big tent.
What country did Taylor Swift get us to invade? No.
Yeah. No, don't you think, though, that, and I do this, I believe this, there is still a core group of folks out there, your point being, and not joke, the don't tread on me, the Reagan piece of this, the libertarian piece, but the constitutional piece, there are a lot of people out there. I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing. It doesn't mean they agree with us. We're not going to take their foreign policy decisions and discussions, and implement those. We're going to take their
promise?
Yes, promise.
All right. First of all,
did you hear the 2 or 3 people that tried to clap in the audience and that didn't?
You just freaking can't. I do believe that the thing with Liz Cheney is just that she has a chip on her shoulder because Trump got her beat.
Absolutely.
I think that this is just payback for her. To say that somehow the Cheneys are aligned with the Constitution, like to even mention that is so off the wall to me. Dick Cheney has violated so many constitutional and American laws. Like it's just off the chart. He really should be in prison.
Well, people really do have they have short-term memory. It's like they truly forget just how I'm 41 and I'm sure you would agree. For as long as you've been on this earth, I never had an uneasy feeling in terms of where we were as a country, like I did when Bush and Cheney were in the White House. I had this very uncomfortable feeling.
But that also coincided with 9/11 and the aftermath of that. And so you don't necessarily know. I mean, I knew he was a moron to begin with, because again, I was living in Texas. He was the governor, and that was in 2000. And so he's exactly what I expected him to be. I thought the whole thing was off the wall, but so he's a moron. I had no expectations for him. But why do you think they're any different, or that tangent like that, or trajectory, it would have been the same?
It's fair.
It doesn't matter.
That's fair. I don't disagree.
Would Gore have done all the same things? Probably not. But do I think that overall the military industrial complex would be where it is now? Yes. Just like I think that Kamala will bring us to a slower demise than Trump, but we're still going in that same direction.
The one thing
think
that I
that's it.
do think we would have, I've always felt this way. Do I think neoliberalism would have continued to ascend if Gore had won in 2000? Yes. I don't think that there's much of a debate about that. The one true difference that I think we can agree on that would have happened if he had gotten in. For one thing, obviously, the Supreme Court would have probably gotten more liberal because I believe there were 2 seats that Bush filled between 2001 and 2005. Guys, correct me. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but I believe Bush sat Roberts and he sat Alito. I believe that those are the 2 that he sat when in his first.
It's very foggy to me, but that sounds right.
So I do believe, obviously, the Supreme Court would have been different at that time in that regard. And then the other is I do think we would have gotten much further ahead in terms of the climate change game if Gore
And I
was
wonder
there instead of
how.
Bush.
And I wonder how.
You wonder.
And
You
and
do.
with the neoliberal lens, where we would be with the climate game would be like the whole Tesla concept on steroids, where we can just capitalize green energy so that we can create a profit situation, really not giving any crap about
That's a
the
fair
effects
point.
of the earth. So I do think there would be a lot more quote unquote efforts. You would see a lot more things happening, but would those really be things good for the environment? To me, neoliberalism is completely contradictory to caring for the planet.
Well, it really comes down to whether or not you're willing to sacrifice any form of profit. And as we have seen, that's a non-starter. Now, with that said, clearly there is a considerable amount of concern regarding Jill Stein and what type of an impact she is going to have with the Green Party. It is the only true third-party campaign that is having any impact on this election whatsoever. I think most people would agree with that, especially with RFK getting behind Trump. So
Well,
now
she
that
got 4 votes in my house.
there you go. And so for those of you who are familiar as a result, probably of Dr. Cornel West with Tavis Smiley, it's a pretty well-known figure within the Black community. And while he is a avowed Democrat, he has never denied such. He's always been reasonably fair with the Green Party. And he especially was fair when initially Dr. West was running in the Green Party before things obviously switched up. And so last night he did interview Jill Stein, but this is where things get very interesting. Apparently, the DNC gave him marching orders to ask certain questions. Otherwise, there would be consequences. So here we go.
Number 3 in this email, I quote from the email from the DNC. Earlier this month, she, Jill Stein, told Newsweek falsely that she was not taking GOP help in this race. We put out a statement, we being the DNC apparently, put out a statement noting how false that was with more background here. There's a link in this email for me to see the background. Then we learned this week that she, in fact, paid a lawyer who was involved in cases to overturn the 2020 election results. Dr. Jill Stein.
So the potential involvement of GOP operatives was not at any kind of strategic or meaningful level. I think what they're referring to is that petition gatherers who can come from all political spectrum, all across. And in fact, we hired Democrats to assist with signature collection. This is routine. And I think the case that they're referring to, the campaign was not aware of. Signatures, petitions were given to us, which volunteers do all the time. So yes, and then it turns out that one of those gatherers may have been a Republican operative, which we were not aware of at the time. So this happens all the time. Let's look at the real corruption in this system. And by the way, the rules in this system are made by Democrats and Republicans. They're not made by us. And the Democrats announced, in fact, that they had hired an army of lawyers to try to find technical trivia to throw us off the ballot in violation of the spirit of the law, that they would be using the letter of the law, and hired an army of lawyers to throw competitors off the ballot.
And that is the great point of emphasis, that no matter what the DNC tries to throw or threaten and suggest that, oh, you're a Putin puppet or you're an operative or anything of that nature. And I do apologize because I played this a little too quickly. We're going to continue with the questions, but then I'm going to play the part where Tavis explains exactly why these questions were put forward, which is very interesting how he explains it. But
can we, like, I honestly dislike the term operative. What does that mean? Like, are you trying to make anybody who's affiliated with a party sound somehow like a secret agent?
Well, don't forget. Well, hold on a minute. Don't forget that there are people that have come up to you personally and have told you that they really would like to support you against Wasserman Schultz, but I can't do it. They will bury me if I do it. And
Yes.
This is the same thing. It's like, you interview Jill Stein, you're going to do what we say. And if you don't do what we say, we are going to bury you. We don't care who you are. And the Democrats do this. The Republicans don't do this. The Republicans don't really care. I just think that the Republican mindset is so much more of a winning mindset, whereas the Democrat mindset is more of a play not to lose mindset.
Well, they're victims. They like to be victims.
They do. They like to listen. I've said, and I think a lot of people would agree, the whole thing about going after Jill Stein is just making sure they got all their ducks in a row if they don't win, because they want to know exactly where to point the finger so that it's not at them. That's what it's about.
One of the ways they did that in the 2022 election, they actually impersonated the Green Party. They called people who had signed our petitions, telling them that they were the Green Party and would they please take their name off of the signature. So they were committing fraud and impersonation in order to get our Senate candidate at the time, Matthew Hoh in North Carolina, off of the ballot. They happened to call the chair of the Green Party while they were pretending to be the Green Party and told him that he needed to take his name off the ballot. The Green Party wanted him to do that. He recorded the conversation. It was brought to court. They were found guilty of basically, I would call it fraud. They called it operating with dirty hands. So this is what the Democrats do. They also advertised publicly for people to manage infiltrators and spies to mess up our petition drives. So yes, this is a very corrupt and dirty system. We happen to be caught by it when we know in advance that there's someone who is breaking the rules that we didn't make. When someone is breaking these rules, we reject that support. In this case, someone posing as a volunteer just dropped off the signatures.
Issue number 4, raised in this email to me from the DNC. I quote, last week, Stein was endorsed by David Duke.
Woo!
David Duke.
As
who
opposed
said that
to
he made
Cheney.
the endorsement after thinking about, quote, what's good for white people.
Listen, I ain't endorsing the KKK, but how many people has David Duke killed compared to how many people
That
Dick
doesn't
Cheney's
even, that's
killed?
not the point. I find, and Colin says that the first clip of him, I guess, is the one explaining the thing about the DNC. But the problem with that is, and as somebody who has been a candidate, you can't control who endorses you, right? Like, you can control who you brag about endorsements from. That's the only control that you have. You like, and I know that Jill Stein then said she rejected that endorsement, which she shouldn't even have to do. You don't have to reject an endorsement.
Shouldn't even dignify it with a response.
No. And so it is so ridiculous to me that the party of people that are bragging about an endorsement from a war criminal are criticizing her for an endorsement that she hasn't even mentioned.
You know, for a race that apparently is so close, they really do seem to have a lot of time, effort, and money to throw at little Jill Stein. I tell you.
I like it because it means they're scared. They need to set up their excuse for losing too.
That's exact. Hey, they should be scared.
For Europeans, close quote. What say you about being endorsed by David Duke?
Apparently he didn't know that I'm Jewish. And who put him up to this is what I'd like to know. And of course, we rejected that out of hand.
Okay.
She
Issue number
shouldn't
5 on this issue, this email from the DNC. Stein has repeatedly said she has no regrets about being a spoiler in the 2016 election, even after everything Trump did in office. See background below, and there's all kind of background below. to make this particular point. There's that word spoiler again. I don't like the word, but the issue they raise here, I do want to interrogate. And that is this notion that you could, in this election, you are on the ballot in every single one of these swing states. Speaking of the New York Times, they did an article the other day about you and Cornel West, and I'm blanking on his name now, the Libertarian Party candidate, Chase.
Chase Oliver?
Yes, Chase Oliver,
Yes.
who's been a guest on this program as well. I've invited everybody on this program. This issue that they're raising in this email from the DNC is that you're potentially pulling votes away, back to this issue again, from Kamala Harris, and that you could end up being like Ralph Nader and handing the election to the other guy, in this case, Donald Trump. Your thoughts?
So, number one, if they're concerned about the potential to draw votes away from another candidate, which in my view is wrong from the get-go, for the most part, us independent alternative candidates largely give people who otherwise won't vote a reason to come out and vote. Remember, that's 1 out of every 3. That's largely people of color, low income, younger, who aren't voting. They don't buy the 2 zombie political parties being rammed down their throats. So people deserve those choices. I reject the spoiler framing. But let's look at what the evidence seems to be showing right now. In fact, that we are drawing votes from Trump and not from, to the extent that you accept this framing, it appears to be Trump, according to 2 recent polls, from whom we are drawing votes, particularly in swing states. So I'd say this is just wrong. Most importantly, Democrats can solve this by passing ranked choice voting. If you subscribe to this view that multiple candidates may be taking votes away from each other, which, by the way, you're supposed to do in an election, that's what democracy is about, competing for votes. So that, it's wrong-headed on that count as well. But there's a solution called ranked choice voting, which Greens have been advancing and supporting forever. It lets you rank your choices, and it ensures that you're never taking votes away from someone else, that as a candidate who can't win, you are never drawing votes away from someone else. And
I find this an angry. I'm so angry about all of this. Like, I can't. I don't think I'm going to get out of this whole thing without an ulcer. First of all, I voted for Ralph Nader, and he wears that spoiler badge proud, and he should. And first of all, I agree. There shouldn't even be that concept. It's so stupid. Screw everybody who thinks that. Seriously, go play strategy somewhere else. Go play a board game. Your vote is your vote.
We have a great frame of reference, if you remember, just back in 2020. The DNC successfully kicked, not that he mattered in any capacity, but they kicked Howie Calkins of the Green Party off of the ballot in Wisconsin, among other states. Now, Joe Jorgensen, who was the Libertarian Party candidate, and for those of you who remember, Wisconsin in 2020 was razor thin, that landed in Biden's camp. There were enough votes, unquestionably, from Joe Jorgensen on the Libertarian ticket that if it had been shifted over to, let's say, Trump would have won Wisconsin. You haven't heard a single word from the GOP about any of that shit. No one ever talks about that because it's ridiculous on its face. And that's why they're better electoral strategists, because they know that most people that are voting for Jill Stein were never intending to vote for Kamala Harris anyway.
Ever. They know that. I think they know that, but they just got to they just got to have their built-in excuse for when they lose.
We'll finish it up.
It's a simple system. You rank your choices. If your first choice doesn't win on the first count, then your vote is basically reassigned to your second choice. So there's never a throwaway vote. Votes are never taken from one candidate to another. It's a great system. It's win-win. It's used in about 25 cities around the country. It's used in the state of Maine. Oregon and Washington State are voting on it. But the Democrats are fighting it. Why are they fighting it? Because they want to use fear to extort your vote. They could win our votes. And Kamala Harris is all freaked out because we're attracting the Arab vote. Well, she could attract the Arab vote if she simply stopped killing and massacring children and women and innocent civilians in Gaza. She could win those votes. She doesn't want to talk about that issue at all, so they would rather just blame and shame voters for standing up and voting our values. Don't listen to it. Don't let them talk you into compromising your values.
Yep.
Very powerful.
Agreed.
And of course, this is something where, look, we don't have to play the clip, but
Yeah, no, I think we've done enough.
Tavis goes into great detail about how he got this email from the DNC basically telling him that we have a list of questions we would like for you to ask Jill Stein. And they did it in a way that basically suggested that if you don't do what we ask, you're going to have a problem. And so the way he frames it is a very sleight of hand, which I liked, which is as if to say, I really don't want to have to ask these questions to you, but I'm basically being told I have to do it. So
and it makes the Democrats look as ridiculous as they are.
Absolutely. It makes them look terrible, but they don't care. They're actually they're just kind of accepting of their stupidity and corruption now. Like, to me, it's just really out in the open. Like, they have no shame.
I mean, the whole concept is very interesting. And I do believe that any time that anybody, especially when it's coming from a shit lib, brings up the spoiler argument or well, then you're just voting for Trump argument, ask them when the last time was that they pressured somebody for ranked choice voting. Because I really think that is the answer. If the Democrats were so concerned with that, then that's what they would be supporting. Then they would be happy with ranked choice voting.
Vertigo.
They know that they would lose every time with ranked choice voting.
That's why they can't afford it. They cannot afford that change. And this is going to be our last clip of the evening. We are going to save a couple for next time, including Tulsi's official announcement that she is now in the GOP. Who couldn't see that coming?
I didn't know that already didn't happen. I thought that already happened.
Well, she wanted to make it official.
Oh,
kind of like a marriage.
Does she like polish Trump's shoes, or what does she do?
She did a really great job. Couldn't appreciate it more. Let me tell you, Tulsi and RFK, I believe, are making an impact with independent voters. I do.
And I got to tell you, if he's picking these people for his cabinet and she's looking at putting somebody like Liz Cheney in,
Colin, bring back the clip of Stein talking about Palestine, which was the third clip. Yep, that's it. So unlike the current vice president, who cannot answer any question as it relates to what's going on right now, we do have the luxury of hearing an answer regarding this particular topic from a candidate who has embraced basically being, spoiler, if that's how you want to look at it, but Jill Stein's willing to go with it. So here's what she had to say.
What does genocide look like? Because mainstream media is not covering this, and so many people don't have the benefit of what's going on, the assault on hospitals, on sick people. Hundreds of people now in northern Gaza whose hospitals are under siege, and they're, people in hospital beds are now, the held hostage and under assault. It's just, children are being shot in the head routinely now by the Israeli Defense Forces. Some 2,000 people, something like that, have been killed just in like the last couple of weeks as this war extends into Lebanon. People need to know what's going on. So we will bring back congressional hearings. We want to empower the people to be the driver of our democracy and to break the stranglehold that big money, corporations, super PACs, AIPAC, etc., the weapons contractors, the stranglehold that they have on our political system right now. And let me mouth off here for a second, because we know that over 68%, actually, I think was the number of Americans want an immediate ceasefire and a diplomatic solution, and nearly as many want a weapons embargo to Israel.
And think about it. With all of the propaganda that is thrown at us every single day, especially as it relates to Israel, 2 out of 3 Americans say that this shit's got to stop.
Yes.
Imagine where they would stand if they really.
Why she's going to lose. Hence why Kamala is going to lose, because of that. Yes, they're underestimating that.
Matthew Dowd, who I'm sure you're aware of, another corporate talking head, comes out today and says, you have nothing to worry about. Keep in mind, Matthew Dowd was the chief strategist of the Bush-Cheney campaign in 2004. Came out today and said, you have nothing to worry about. Kamala's going to win. It really is this small club that thinks that they can just sort of isolate themselves from the rest of the country. But as much as people think that this issue is not a primary issue for voters, and you know what? It's probably not. But I do believe that the issue of Israel-Palestine is a deal breaker for anyone who's sitting on the fence and actually has a sense of what's going on. That is a deal breaker because there
I
are
think,
other
well,
options.
yeah, I think that's a deal breaker, but and she's not even fully reporting what's really going on in North Gaza right now. Not that that's her job to do so, but
No,
yeah,
we'll
you
finish.
realize that they're on death marches and they're digging big holes and just burying people, right? Like they're in the final solution now in North Gaza.
They are. And that's a very good point. And we'll finish this out and I'll tell you what I was hearing earlier today.
Of an embargo on all military assistance at this point, which in fact is what U.S. law actually calls for. So there's enormous momentum for that, but you won't see it reflected in Congress.
Because AIPAC, the Israel lobby led by AIPAC, will not permit it. Because this is a shell game. It's corporate special interests that have captured our government. And now you're seeing what it's like in real time when a genocide is committed in broad daylight and they're telling you, you will take this and you will enjoy it. And that's it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, but guys, if you're not really aware, or I mean, most of our people probably are, but what's going on right now in North Gaza, not that it's really that drastically different than what's been going on for the past year, but this is their final solution. They're literally wiping North Gaza clean. They're putting mass amounts of people. They're separating the men and the women. They're separating children from their parents, and they are putting people in holes and burying them.
So I very rarely comment on social media posts, but there was one that came up on my personal feed today, and I just said, it is amazing how much you guys are willing to accept genocide, and it shows. And a lot of people came and supported what I had to say, but there were also a lot of them that came on there and started losing their mind and started emphasizing this notion of, well, if Trump gets in, they're going to annex the West Bank. Do you really think they won't do it if Kamala's in there?
They've already done it. Let's be real. The West Bank has been Swiss cheesed annexed for years.
Just like it was leaked today that we have fighter pilots dropping bombs on Gaza. You know how long that's probably been going on? It's probably been going on since the beginning. And they've been able to keep it quiet. There's a lot. Listen, a lot.
There's a reason they're targeting journalists. They just put out a kill list with like 6 remaining journalists that are in Gaza. And they're targeting them specifically. But I mean, they've been targeting them, but now they're actually advertising that they're targeting journalists.
Well, imagine how many journalists may have been killed because they knew that the U.S. was involved in the warfare and that they were going to leak it. And if that's true, at some point, the truth will come out in terms of what was known, when it was known. But the audacity of people to think that they are not privileged by thinking that voting for Harris is a lesser of two evils justification. You've got this moron of a person, with all due respect, who thinks that she's going to be president of the United States, still peddling the rape story, still peddling the hostage story, when in fact, probably most of them are dead. And number 3, she's still peddling the 2-state solution.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the trifecta of just that you can tell she really is just saying talking points. And I mean, she has no solutions. She's not, even if she wanted to, which I don't think she's capable. But I mean, it doesn't matter what they're going to do. It doesn't matter what they're going to do. Like, she's not going to have any say so. She has no say so. Again, I don't think she picks out her clothes.
She may not.
I
Jen,
think everything is decided for her.
Do you have it in you to spend a few minutes covering Tulsi's announcement with Donnie?
I don't think people in the chat, somebody said something pretty gnarly about Tulsi, which is, it's fair game. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to sit there and cover Tulsi, like, I don't see why.
Well, the only reason that I cover Tulsi that you and I have talked about is that Tulsi is the only stateswoman that I could think of right now that actually carries herself the way somebody who would be Madam President could actually do it. I can't really think of anybody else that I look at and say, yeah, she's got it. No,
but she's lost so much credibility. She has.
Oh, she's a sellout. There's just no getting around that.
And so that's not.
But Tulsi,
so I don't want to be hanging her out like somehow she's the good guy in this.
No, she's not the good guy. All I'm saying is that she has the capability of holding her own as a leader, if that makes sense.
Tulsi's an Islamophobe and a transphobe.
Yeah.
And I'm not even somebody who really props out the phobe term very often, but she definitely is. She's against wars unless it's killing dark people.
Yeah, that's where the hypocrisy really comes into play. And that's the emphasis here. And the reason I'm going to play it is because it has more to do with her lauding of Trump, which, again, it's for a job. There's no question. Is she going to be the next Secretary of State? I can't say for sure. But
you're right. That's what Peter always says, Adam. Not about Tulsi in particular, but just the general thought process of that.
No, that's actually not what I say. But I would say that
you always say that the more attractive women are all Republicans.
I would say that the more tall, the women that typically are given the spotlight.
Oh, I'll say it. The women down here there is absolutely more attractive women in the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. There is. They do. They've got like pageant queen looking people, and we don't. So it's like that.
What Tulsi had that was not acceptable in the Democratic Party is that she's a tough cookie. And that's a type of thing that isn't really accepted in the overwoke liberal dynamic that dominates the Democratic Party today. She does look like a Republican. She sounds like a Republican. She looks like a Republican. So now she is a Republican, and here she is talking about it.
I was a Democrat for over 20 years. Today's Democrat, thank you. Today's Democrat Party is completely unrecognizable, which points to the clear choice that we have in this election today. When you look at the party of Kamala Harris, for example, she is anti-freedom, she is pro-censorship, she is pro-open borders, and she is pro-war.
Now, all of that may be true, but you're not really doing anything to dispel that. You support very similar aspects. You just pretend like you do not. So, on the one hand, you can be calling her out, and it's correct. But on the other hand, you're not exactly doing anything to dispel that you aren't that person too, especially when you are as knee-deep with the Israel lobby as you are. I mean, she looks at Shmuley just like RFK does. And again, it's all for a career. As you've said, and what was the book was it Mark Lamont Hill?
Except for Palestine.
Except for Palestine.
Yeah.
Only in this case, it really is except for Palestine.
So what is she saying?
And others who care more about power and feeding the military-industrial complex than they care about you, the American people, and peace. President Trump has pledged to end wars, not start them. And this is why, in the eyes of the Kamala Harris, Dick Cheney Democrat Party, they will do everything possible to try to destroy him.
Throwing that Dick Cheney line in there is not going to help the Democrats. Not even a little bit. You asked for it, and now you've got it. And you know what?
They want to wear that. They'll wear that now. That is going to be pinned to them like stink they'll never get rid of.
No, and you know what? Win or lose, it should stick with them forever now.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I'm glad there's lots of photos and all that stuff. I am glad.
You'll see how they have weaponized the federal government. They have weaponized law enforcement, the Department of Justice. Now, to those of you here or those watching at home who are independent-minded people like myself, who love our country and are committed to the Constitution and to freedom, the Democrat Party has no home for people like us. But we do have a home in the Republican Party where we are welcomed with open arms by President Trump and so many of you who love our country. And it is because of my love for our country, and specifically because of the leadership that President Trump has brought to transform the Republican Party and bring it back to the party of the people and the party of peace, that I'm proud to stand here with you today, President Trump, and announce that I'm joining the Republican Party.
Really incredible.
I actually thought that was him. I actually thought that was him because I wasn't looking. I thought he said that.
And the truth is, if you're trying to just sell on style points, that sells a hell of a lot better as a disaffected Democrat versus a disaffected Republican like Dick Cheney. You want Dick Cheney? We'll take Tulsi Gabbard. And you know what? If you're putting that side by side in terms of who's going to convert more independent voters, there's no question that Tulsi Gabbard is going to win you a hell of a lot more votes. And I do believe without question that if Trump does win, Tulsi Gabbard will run for president in 28.
That, and I think she's very likely to get a position. She's very likely to get a cabinet position. I could see her being Secretary of State. You know,
can also tell, which is not fake. You can tell that there's amount of respect that Trump has for Tulsi and RFK. Like you can sense that he appreciates them.
And I've said it before. I'd rather her, and as much as I have issues with Tulsi, I find her capable and competent. And I also think she's somebody that would be respected in a diplomatic capacity, infinitely more than whoever Kamala would appoint. So again, I'm not a Tulsi person.
Neither am I. I appreciate, like I said, I've always respected her because she served our country, especially serving as a medic in combat zones. I mean, that's really gutsy shit that she has done. I think she carries herself extremely well. And if we are going to have a Madam Vice President, it's going to be somebody like her, not somebody like Kamala.
And you know what? This is an interesting thing. There is no purpose. That is exactly.
It really doesn't stand. They don't stand for anything anymore.
Nothing. They stand for absolutely nothing. They stand for Orange Man Bad. That's it. That's all they got.
And on top of everything else, and if you guys want to talk about the perfect set closer for our show, good old Debbie Wasserman Schultz today puts out a tweet thanking the AFL-CIO for their endorsement.
Well,
keep in mind, early voting's already begun. Supposedly, she's going to definitely win no matter what happens.
Yeah, although my house was 4 votes for you, Chris Eddy.
Red vote, blue vote, green vote. You got
I voted green president, blue Senate, and red Congress. I'm a true rainbow.
Yeah.
And
so now you think that if Wasserman Schultz, who not only supported one of only 3 Democrats, keep in mind, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has sat on the board of ALEC, which is one of the most anti-labor conservative think tanks in all of DC. Remember, they had to scrub her name from the website because we discovered it when Jen ran the first time. They knew that that was bad for her politically. And so they had to wipe it down. She's one of only 3 Democrats that voted to fast track the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And she has not met a trade deal or war that she has not supported since she's been in Congress for 20 years. But AFL-CIO, by all means, get on your hands and knees for that absolutely anti-labor buffoon of a representative.
And again, I don't know Chris's policies on that, and I'm assuming he wouldn't necessarily be any better. But I do know that he's not a corporate tool.
Sometimes the most powerful thing that you can do in politics is just not get involved. Kind of like the Teamsters. They just said, no, I guess we're not endorsing anybody. And they got chastised to death by the Democrats because they wouldn't endorse. It's like, you don't know anything. And they made it very simple. They said, listen, if our guys strike, can you promise and guarantee that you will not break the strike? And they said, I can't promise you that. Could you imagine a Democratic presidential candidate saying, I can't promise you I'm not gonna union bust you?
Well, yes, that's where we are now. Yes, I do. The same way that I see Democratic people supporting things like the TPP. Yes, I do understand that.
Couldn't have said it better.
And are we not talking about the local thing? Are we not going to talk about
Colin, did you not get my message about Dean Trantillis?
Okay, don't worry. I don't care. Like, it's not like a big deal. I just thought he's just, one of the favorite douchey people. We could talk about it next time. There's no
all right. So then,
there's no urgency.
All right. So then, you know what, Colin, save it for Monday, please. It'll still be relevant at the same time.
Yeah,
'cause the election-
our not our mayor, because we live in Plantation, but mayor of Fort Lauderdale, who we've brought up on a few occasions because he is just a douche of all douches. He has a couple of challengers, and I
Well,
don't
he
know
deserves
like
it.
how many votes it actually takes. Like I don't know enough about that district size and how many to know what it would take to unseat him, and I don't know how popular he is. I know a lot of people don't like him.
Well, he is the embodiment of all that is wrong with local
Ugh.
politics, and that is saying something.
Yeah,
But
no,
that's
and Henry's right. But unfortunately, they get away with that because the railroads are not under the purview of the NLRB and they have different rules. And so that is how Biden is sort of able to skirt that issue as opposed to busting a regular union. Apparently, he could say, well, you know, it's the railroads, it's different.
unacceptable, point blank, period. We do
AOC
have our
has
next.
a challenger. That won't matter though, because
That
you're
doesn't
talking
matter.
in a general, it won't matter
Yeah,
there.
it doesn't matter. But we do have our next 3 shows planned out. So you guys get ready because we've got some big ones. Monday, we will have a fellow progressive and content creator that we will be crossing over with. Jamal Thomas will be coming on Monday. On Thursday, next Thursday, we will have the esteemed author and commentator, Norman Solomon.
I finished the book, and guys, it's a quick read. His book is a quick read.
I'm about halfway through it. It's a quick read.
I mean,
Very
a
good.
chunk of it is notes. So when you look, like you're actually probably further than you think. Like a lot of it is notes.
Yeah,
Because
no,
you
it's
know,
very-
we actually bring on people that actually have citations for the crap that they say.
Oh.
You know,
Well, I wouldn't
actual
say what he
research.
says is crap. He's actually a real war correspondent in
I'm
the
just saying they
days
cite
of Chris
their
Hedges.
facts.
Yeah.
They cite their facts.
No, he's the real deal. And then, of course, we will not have a show on Monday the 4th, but we will have a show on Tuesday the 5th, which is election night.
Oh, and that's going to be so glorious.
We'll get some guests working on that as we speak. And we are going to refine our style a little bit going forward. We'll figure out the most effective way to do that.
I'm going to get the second camera working in here. That's one of
camera
my
going.
goals. I'd like
Uh,
to get this second camera up and running.
And Teresa, thank you as always. It is certainly appreciated. And remember, guys, for as little as $5 a month, you can support our small but mighty channel. You can go
And
over to
don't scroll patrons today. I have to update them.
We've
we
gotten
have
some
a
new
couple of-
people.
We have a couple of new people, and I have to
Great.
get rid of some old people.
Okay, well, so 6 of one, half a
Type
dozen of the other.
in the
Then.
herd.
Yes. Well, here's hoping we want tacos. I will,
Oh.
Amendment 3, vote yes, and Amendment 4, vote yes.
Oh, me want tacos. You and I think, are kindred spirits. Just
Mm.
the fact that you're a cannabis user and you like tacos, I think that right there we'd get along just marvelously. What time, more or less, do we want to do on the 5th? I guess 9, but
Yeah.
you think earlier? I just feel like it's just not gonna. We're not gonna have any information. I feel like the states that
No,
will
you know what? The truth is that we should stick with what we do because 9 o'clock makes sense because so many other shows are going to be going at like 7 and stuff like that. And people are going to want to be flipping around. So they'll probably end up on our side.
That, but also, I mean, remember, it's whatever the states are. Are there any states that are in later time zones that matter? Nevada, Arizona?
And Arizona.
Okay. So then that's basically, I mean, right, because everything else out there is just a lost cause, in terms of you don't need to stay awake to know.
But the truth is, if we go until 11 and we have an inkling as to where Pennsylvania is going, we'll have a pretty good idea of where the election is going. I think that's a fair assessment.
Look at that. We've got a huge Trump supporter in our chat. Welcome. Because I'm not partisan. I am done with that nonsense. I have been for a really long time. And I'm not a Trump fan by any stretch, but I dislike the Democrats more. I do.
We're going to have, what we mean by that, Schultze, is certain things are going to be pontificating with Pete, for example. Jen has emphasis on certain stories that she wants to cover. So we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We may be adding an additional show that will be discussed post-election.
Yes.
And so
you can say, right? Like, I mean, I don't, and if it doesn't happen, I mean, but Because I've had Mo on here before.
Of course. I think we've noticed the trend. We noticed that our channel's been growing a little bit. Maybe it's because it's election season, or maybe people really do like what we're doing. But somebody like Adam, High School Necktie Goodman, he is somebody who's new. And then of course we have our regulars, and I will scroll through them real quick. Henry Kajawa, Holly Horn, person of no interest, Teresa, Jimmy Zimzam, Adam Goodman, Schultze, Yes But No, Chris Garrett, Me Want Tacos, Ray J, Zachariah Bernor.
I think we're gonna try to be more, structured, I think.
Yes. I would definitely say, I've been saying President Blinken for the longest time. I think most people would probably agree with that. Sable Minor. Let's see who else. Squeakly Maniac. Good name. John Nada, thanks for checking in. I think I gave Holly a shout out.
I just cannot wait for this whole election thing to be over. I'm so bored of it.
We need to make it stop. Yes, we need to make everything stop.
I'm so sick of the text. I'm so sick of the commercials. Here, I just got one right now, just sitting here. This one is from, let's see, who's this from?
Rispy, Doug Grinsberg,
It's for
Tony
Stop
D.
Bobert. This is a Stop Bobert. So from some Colorado Democrat.
It's amazing. And no matter how many times you say stop, they are going to continue to recycle your number to the next idiot who's going to send you.
But you know what? It's sort of like you and I forfeit the right to say that because we've done it. And I know, and it's one of the reasons that I don't like campaigning is because I know what it feels like to be campaigned, and it's really annoying.
Jessica Mai, Denise Columbia, Sisyphean Task, Melanie Dennis, Collective Art Designs. Let's see.
Thank you, Tony D.
Donald James, much appreciated.
Yeah, what is the money? This election, the money situation, of course, every time it goes higher and higher and higher. But it's
remember the money is also heavily concentrated into very specific areas.
David we're in them, right? I mean, I guess you're talking Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, but it's still money. It doesn't, it's just so stupid. This whole thing is just so, I just wanted to be
Linda Fontes checked in. Great to see you, Linda. I think one of the big difficulties that you had both times running for Congress when it came to raising money is that unfortunately there is, especially in the Democratic Party in particular, Chino Latino, I'm doing like Mr. Subliminal, remember with Kevin Nealon? That was great. That was great. And so actually what was going on, Josie Justice, so just playing around with that. But
thanks, Sable.
A lot of Democratic Party donors, for whatever reason, even ones who agree and will tell you that they agree and that they hate people like Wasserman Schultz, they will not donate in a primary.
Yeah,
not do that.
That it is well, and I don't know that that's necessarily just a Democrat thing. I think that's just a person thing. I think that people who are partisan affiliated, sort of that are just with their party, they're not going to waste their money until they feel like they're really have something in it, and that would be
thank you, Sable.
Party line.
Yes.
So that's what it is. So no, I had a lot of people that would otherwise be big donor people, and they only donate in the general.
Jessica, Monday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, the election night
normally,
exception, but yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the reference, but I guess I'll just have to accept it.
Squirrel.
Smash that like button.
Like, I say it's like Dory from Finding Nemo. It's like, oh, something shiny.
Oh,
Squirrel.
Distracted? Exactly. No, fair
but
enough.
Just by one particular thing, right? So you don't remember did you not see Up? Okay, let me tell you, and I'll do it right here. Hi, my name is Jen, and I cry during Up. And there should be a support group for it and a whole thing. How have you not seen that? I question people that don't cry in that movie.
Well, I haven't seen it, so I can't tell if I did or not.
It's so sweet. But the squirrel thing is, there are these dogs that they're so smart unless there's a squirrel. And then it's just like squirrel.
The only movie that makes me cry is Milo and Otis. With that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Thursday. Monday.